Saahil Mehta has built 4 businesses, he has climbed 6,000-meter peaks, and he's coached leaders who already made it but still feel trapped by pressure, by people-pleasing, and by someone else's version of success. We're here on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank, and we're here to talk about it, to uncover some uncomfortable truths, people-pleasing, clutter being this invisible ceiling on performance and energy, and we'll hear it from the man, the myth, the legend himself, a mountain climber, an entrepreneur who helps others in many different ways. He coaches high-performing entrepreneurs through scale, transition, and reinvention. So if that sounds like exactly the place where you should be right now, solve some problems, clear the clutter, then Mr. Saahil is here to help us out. So Saahil, how the heck are you today?
I'm doing amazing, and wow, what an intro! I need to send a recording of this to everyone else who introduces me in the future.
We'll do it, and that way they can watch the rest of the show and get some more help. So that's what I'm here for. I will be your hype man every day and every night. But as far as us delivering on that promise, what has you excited? What kind of people do you help?
The people that I work with are highly successful entrepreneurs. What does highly successful mean? They have net worth 8 figures. They have companies that are leading in their spaces. It's usually a combination of those two. They're living a great lifestyle. They've got a nice, they got the car, the holidays, the lifestyle, family in many cases, children. It's a good life. They've checked all the boxes that their 20-year-old self said, once I get here, I will be successful. Now, what happens in reality, and this is not with everyone, but with several such individuals, including the previous version of me, by the way, is all the boxes were checked. The system was followed to the T. If you do this, you will grow your company. If you do this, you'll get the best education. You'll get the best tools in order to run your company. You'll be able to be part of these communities, whether it's a club community, a golfing community, whatever those communities are. You've got a cushy lifestyle, and you're just thinking, once I get there, I'll be free and I'm going to feel great. Now I got there, and these other people got there, and they go, wait a second. I have all this success. Why am I not feeling successful? Is this how the next 20 years of my life are going to look like? What if I thought I was going to have freedom, but yet I'm shackled to my business? There are things that are going on in my life with health and maybe some relationships. They're not quite where I thought they'd be. And although these might sound troubling, the good news is, Robert, is that something can still be done about it. Because the problem is not you, it's that the system you were following was not yours. It was one that was inherited, as you said in the introduction. Someone else told me that this is what success means, whether it was family, community, media, the educational system, social media, you name it. But when was the last time that I actually sat down with myself and said, Saahil, what does success really mean to you? And so that's what we do with these amazing people is we first redefine what success means to them. Because once they have clarity on what that is, decision-making becomes easier. They start taking steps in a direction that is in line with their definition of success. And then life starts to get more fulfilling. Because the last thing we want, and this is research done on regret. There's a book out there called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself rather than the life that others expected of me. And now that I know what that is and I share that with my amazing clients, the first thing I say is, we don't want to be that person.
Right.
So let's start by defining what it means to us today and then move in that direction.
Very nice. And it sounds like maturing and growing up. And like you do your mountain climbing, and I'm sure you've gotten lost in the wilderness before, right? And you say, which way is north? Where's the sun? Which way should I be going? And if you just say, well, I'm lost, but I'll just go twice as fast, twice as hard, you'll get double lost. And sometimes you just have to stop and look around and say, well, hang on a second. I know I made this progress. I know I got here, but I need to kind of redefine things, right? Figure out what that answer of what success looks like. And I'm curious about like how people change with you. Like what's their new definition become?
So we take them through this process where, you talk about mountaineering. And as a mountaineer, I love using mountaineering analogies. So we have something called the seven summits, the tallest mountain on each of the seven continents. And once you've conquered all of them, they say you've conquered the world. So I said to myself, well, what if we conquered our internal seven summits? And so a framework was developed over the years, and people are looking at what are the seven most important things in my life. If I said three, it'd be too easy. Health, wealth, relationships. Everyone says that. But once you have to pick seven, you have to think beyond.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's spirituality. Perhaps it's fun and recreation. Perhaps it's personal growth. And there's so many other areas of life that are important, but may not be front of mind. But when you have to think and dig for seven, you start to discover, ooh, actually, these things are important for me. And so once you've discovered once you've identified the seven summits which make up your definition of success, we then look at prioritizing and understanding which can be dropped temporarily or sacrificed and which ones cannot. But here's the thing, once we go through this process, what is the end result? Because we can talk about the process all day long, but ultimately, what is it that we're looking for? We're looking for something that allows us to have clarity so that we can make a decision that is in line with our definition of success. And once you have the seven summits, you can ask yourself, is my decision by saying yes, am I net overall going up the mountains or am I going down? Because what several of us make as an error, including myself, is I saw, in my case, more money and the company growing, and I went, yes, let's go. But what I didn't look at is what was I saying no to? Because when I say yes to something, I've said a no to a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And if that no was taking me overall down these mountains, even though finance went up, for example, or my work life improved, maybe that's not the right solution for me. So you start understanding what matters most, and you take the steps in the direction that are right for you.
Very nice. And I kind of a repeat theme that I'm getting from our conversation is how, there's the seven summits, and in any situation, there's a need for focus, right? And in order to get to where you need to go, you kind of have to put the lesser items to the wayside and pause or reduce those. And then so that way you can focus on those top one or two things, right? It's like you pull up your car to a stoplight, you can't focus on every last little thing. You're like, okay, here's this stoplight there, here's this car there, and there's only like a few things you can focus on the rest like temporarily goes off to the wayside. And so what I'm getting from you just talking about your process here is that if we don't do this, then there's what's focused and there's what's neglected, right? And that choice of what's in focus comes from someone else, or might be random, or might be unconscious. And it seems like that's why people fall into that trap of, they grow a business, but they lose their family. They get a good career, but they lose their health. And so it's like, something's got to give. We've got to have some amount of focus and discipline. But you're saying now you can choose and be intentional about what gets the front seat, what gets the back seat.
Yeah, and let me give you a practical example, and I'm going to use my real estate business. We own and operate retail in a specific area in Dubai. And we're generally, real estate brokers come with deals. Sahil, you can buy this, you can buy that. And before I look at everything, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Maybe there's a really great deal here or there. But the reality is, my specialty is retail units in this community, which I'm speaking about. And even though I was looking at all these others, even if I spent 15 minutes having a quick read through or entertaining the phone call from the broker, that added up. And that meant it was 15 minutes that I took away from my day, which I could have spent on things that actually mattered a lot more. So what I realized is if I want to work on my strengths, let me just say yes to those who bring me potential deals that are within my scope and my expertise. So whenever they call me, I'm like, hello, is it in JLT? Is it retail? No, not interested.
Okay. And how do
And
you
only
balance?
no, sorry, that was the point I wanted to make. That
Okay.
it's so focused because I know my area of strength, and I'm not looking at all these other shiny objects that are trying to distract me and get my attention away from what really matters.
And sometimes I'm not sure if something is a shiny object or if it's the next thing or it's like the embracing of the unknown, right? Like for example, like you and me we're podcasting, who knows what that leads to, if you get a new idea or if you get that phone call and you're being polite. So how do you reconcile that? How do you know if you're like too unfocused versus being open to future possibilities?
I love that. And if I may, I'm just going to use this podcast as an example. I can appear on lots of podcasts, Robert. There's no shortage of podcasts in the world. And I know that for my business, in order to create awareness, to appear on a podcast is important. But then I prioritize, okay, if I am appearing on a podcast, let me ensure that I'm appearing on a podcast that one is in line with the stuff that I want to speak about. I don't want to appear on something that talks about roofing for manufacturing facilities if I have nothing to do with it. It's just a waste of their time and mine. And how many hours am I willing to give each month towards this? So I have a set idea. I know what result I'm expecting. I'm assessing after every podcast, what is the impact it's creating? Because if I'm getting the impact, then it's like, okay, let me double down. And if I'm not, what do I need to tweak along the way? So it's very intentional. Results are being monitored versus I should be on podcasts. Let me just see on which one I can get on. Ooh, this one called me, that one called me. Let me just say yes to everything and hopefully something sticks. Because hope is not a strategy.
Yes, I agree. So you're testing and tracking. You're saying you've thought through which shows you want to be on. You've got a cap on the amount of time. That way it doesn't take over your whole life. And then you go back and say, okay, well, out of what I've done so far, like, am I on the right track? Do I repeat? Do I adjust? It's a logical, thought through course of action. And I'm curious about your failures, right? Because people come to you, they need some help, they need some readjusting, but it's the are falling on our own sword at times, or going through those painful learning experiences. I find those very just emotional and helpful. So is there anything you feel like sharing about your own kind of missteps, failures, past mistakes?
Absolutely. And I find that even though it's painful at the time, looking back, I go, wow, I'm so glad I went through those experiences because those helped me to become who I am today and have made me a much stronger individual. So if I look at one of the big failures I made early on in my career, I entered a partnership with someone. We were co-founders of a business. He was the majority shareholder, I was the minority. And when you're starting off a business and you met someone and you get along and you're friends, you're thinking, oh, it's going to work out just great. But we never discussed the what ifs. What if this happens? How do we handle it? What if that happens? How do we handle it? Whether it's the sales are not in line with our expectations. What if we're having, disputes amongst ourselves? How do we resolve them? And because we didn't have those important discussions up front, we just said, hey, let's go. When problems did occur in our business, we were not aligned at all. We had very, very opposing viewpoints on several factors. And in the end, as a result of that, I actually left and took a loss because I was the minority. So there was only so much power I had as from a shareholder perspective. And then that was a big learning for me. And I use it even on the mountains today, is before we climb a mountain with all the folks that we're climbing up with, we go through the what if scenarios. Because when we're at 20,000 feet, we're not in the right mindset. We might be emotional. We may not be able to make a proper decision. But if we've already pre-made the decision based on circumstances which are probable, I mean, we can't factor in everything. Someone might say, what if the dinosaurs come back? No, we're not going to discuss that. But what is a probable outcome of a challenge that you may face? And let's discuss it now. And if there are disputes, what's the resolution? What are the steps that we will follow? Do we get an arbitrator or someone to intervene? Because once we have that, should a problem occur, we just go, okay, this is the problem. We've already discussed it. Step 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Oh, yes. And the scenario and the solution, I'm sure, has been thought through more calmly ahead of time and not right there in the moment, like, oh no, what do we do? And I can relate to that because, like, I work with people, and there's one person in particular where I would get shut down when I asked the what if scenarios, and he'd say like, oh, you worry too much. Oh, this won't happen. And I felt like over time that the goalposts kept getting moved closer to me, to the point where like things that were much more likely, because that trick had worked on me before. Oh, you worry too much. I'm like, no, but like this is something we need to have a discussion about. And so like what's like knowing what you know now, does that mean, is that like a red flag, or does that mean that's like an incompatible relationship? Like if someone just if someone won't explore those what ifs that you mentioned, does that just mean, stop it before the relationship develops? What do you do?
Yeah, I would much rather take a hit early on before the stakes get higher and more expensive, because in my particular case, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that could have easily have been avoided, knowing now that we should have had conversations and not only have the conversation, but document it, because it's very easy to look back and go, I didn't say that. No, but you
Right.
did. No, you didn't. Yeah. And then you get into this whole tit for tat conversation. Write it down, sign it, put it away somewhere, and it's always available for, review as and when required. It's almost like a constitution,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's an agreement, a constitution for the company, which you will follow.
Yeah, and it's like when it's written down, it's concrete, it's set, and it's like if there might be like bad actions at play, or it might just be completely innocent because our memories are not reliable. And so it seems like there's just, as we get into adulthood, there's these rules to live by, right? And some things that may seem like counterintuitive or missed opportunities, but it's like it seems like it makes life in general a lot simpler by saying like, hey, here are my do's and here are my don'ts. I won't tolerate this type of person, this kind of behavior from others or from myself. And that seems like a nice path to success towards a better life, better existence, and being happier, fulfilled, and helping others. And so as far as the missing items in our conversation today, I love asking about the missing question, so that way we can focus on what's important to you. So in this conversation we're having, do you think there might be that missing question that I should be asking you, I just don't know to ask you?
Well, one is, as we're walking up these metaphorical mountains, we all have these that we're climbing. The question that we must ask ourselves is, what am I carrying in my backpack? Because if you're carrying things that don't serve any function or purpose, it's slowing you down. So the question is, how do I identify what is in my backpack that is not serving me anymore? And it's not just what's not serving me anymore. I met this army general, and he said, Sahil, it's not just what doesn't serve you, but maybe you're carrying things that are useful, but they're just not giving enough benefit to warrant being in your backpack.
Oh,
Yeah, because you might say, hey, I need to take 2 mics with me for podcasting, but is it really essential to have 2? What if one breaks? No, but one's enough. And the chance of it breaking are pretty slim. So let's just roll with one, because that extra weight times many of the other things that you're carrying weigh you down. So the question becomes, is how do you identify what is that clutter that you're carrying in your backpack? And one great technique that I use and my clients use all the time is asking yourself 2 simple questions at the end of every day. And it's about 2 minutes to go through this exercise. The first question is, what drained my energy levels today? You just write it down, and that's it. And we don't want to end on a low, so we want to end on a high. So the next question is, what raised my energy levels today? And you note that down as well. And Robert, over time, so over a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, you start to notice patterns. You go, every time these kind of situations occurred, my energy levels were either drained or elevated. And so where it was draining, you're like, okay, this is clutter because it's repeating itself over and over again. I need to address it. And whatever was elevating you, you can ask yourself, wow, this is making me a better version of myself. Let's do more of it.
Yeah.
So simple exercise just to identify some of the clutter in your backpack. There are many other exercises, but this is the easiest one that can be implemented right away.
And that's a great exercise. And I love the backpack analogy. I'll be thinking about that for many years. That's one of those that like really sticks in your head. And so it's like the solutions here, they could be simple, but I think some people just by default make it complex. And when you look at those people that are really the most successful, it seems like they have these good habits. They have the mental discipline, and that perhaps began in a small way, like these little exercises. But then once they got the awareness, then they began to figure out the solutions. And it's so difficult to kind of see your own way out, right? It's so tough to solve your own problem. And sometimes someone needs someone like you to, to just see what there is and provide some advice. And so how do you fit into that? If someone says, man, this guy Saahil, I need to know more about him. I need to jump on the Saahil train because I got so much just from that little podcast. What are some next steps here?
Well, the best way to reach me is really through this unique URL that I've created for you. But what I wanted to share with you is that for all the listeners, I've created something called the Zero Regret Success Kit, and it's something where if you've built the business, you've got the net worth, you've checked all the boxes, and there's a voice that's still saying something is missing, then this is for you. The first part is really the success audit. It's a simple exercise, takes about 10 minutes, and it's going to show you exactly the gaps across the 7 dimensions you choose that make up your definition of success, the areas you've been neglecting while building your business, and where to focus first. Most people tell me that the clarity they gain after doing this exercise was more than the experience of the last decade. And then the second part of this, which offer in the unique URL, is the success redefinition session, where I will personally take you through your success audit and map out where you are and where you wish to go. So you can start making taking steps in line with your definition of success. I only offer it to 5 people. It's because I'm doing it. There's no team, there's no other people involved, and I run 4 businesses. So this is the maximum time that I can allocate towards this. So if this is sounding like, yes, this is for me, make sure you grab it. And the URL for this is podcast.sahilmehta.com/marketer. So that's podcast.sahilmehta.com/marketer.
Very good. Very good thinking on your feet. I'm sure I would have mixed up those letters if I was the one speaking that. So that's podcast.sahilmehta.com/marketer. You can go there, watch the video, and you can get on track to getting that success audit figured out. And, I love the mountain climbing metaphors, and I don't even know exactly what goes into it, Sahil, but if someone just it's basically impossible for someone to just wander up a mountain, right? If you were just kind of saying, which way should I walk that way? Oh, now I've gone up Mount Kilimanjaro, right? It takes years, equipment, practice, training, groups of people. It's not a solo effort, and yet there's people that they're wondering why their life isn't what they expected or what they wanted to be. And it's well, maybe because you're just kind of saying, ooh, I'll go that way. And then which you got some results, but not the kind of results that you get as if you were disciplined, you practiced, got the equipment, you kind of reiterated and figure out where you're going wrong. You asked for outside help from people. It makes a lot more sense to me. And especially because it's well, it's not your fault. You're not a bad person. You didn't mess up. You just kind of need better tools and people to help you get to that next level. And that help that you can get is by going to podcast.sahilmehta.com/marketer. We spelled it out. We'll link to it and go there right now. And as far as some final inspirational seconds, Mr. Saahil, you've helped us so much, but I always like to cap the show with a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as that fun or interesting quote that has served you?
Well, it reminds me of my mentor and my co-author, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, for my next book. He always tells me, Saahil, everything I tell you is really easy to understand, but it's not necessarily easy to implement because it requires the courage to look in the mirror and really face yourself. It requires humility to be honest about your weaknesses and ask for help. And finally, the discipline to just take one step forward every day. Because as long as you keep doing that, you eventually make it to the summit. So there you go.
Very nice. Courage, humility, discipline. And we'll think about that as we head to podcast.sahilmehta.com/marketer. And thank you so much for stopping by, Mr. Saahil Mehta, for just making things simple, easy for us. As you said, easy to understand, not always easy to implement, but that's the next step in the journey. So I'm very grateful that you were here, and thank you very much.
Thank you all for listening.